to talk to you as if I was talking to you while you're in my car. So, lately, it's been really heavy on my heart how the loss of a child affects dads. We have a lot of support groups out there for women and mothers and community that supports each of us. But I feel like there's a lot to be left for support for dads. I don't know if it's because guys aren't as likely to say that they're having difficulties, or maybe it doesn't impact them in a way that they feel like they need to sit around and share their feelings with people. But I just wanted to share a little bit about my own experiences with how my husband dealt with grief during our miscarriage and the anxiety during my pregnancy following miscarriage, but also how it affected him as a husband. I feel like I plan to talk to him about it later and maybe see if he'll sit down and have a conversation with me about it and record it, so that way it's something that can be shared with husbands that, I'm going to use the term fathers, because I realize that sometimes you have children with people that you're not married to. And anyway, I feel like it affected him differently than me for lots of reasons. It affected him because it was a helpless feeling. I was completely broken physically, emotionally, spiritually, and there was nothing he could do to fix it. He grieved differently. In some ways he was shielded from the pain of our miscarriage because he didn't endure the physical portions of it. Without being too graphic, because I don't want to be more of a trigger for some women that have experienced miscarriage, but when I delivered our baby, I was by myself in the bathroom, so he didn't see the blood, he didn't see the physical portion of it. A lot of times I had to go to the follow-up appointments by myself because he had to work and his boss isn't very understanding. So a lot of the physical parts of it he was, I would say, protected from, in a sense. Like, he just didn't have to be there. He didn't see all of the things that we see when we're losing a baby. And so for him, it was more difficult emotionally to see me broken and not be able to fix it. I remember when I felt like I wanted to try again to get pregnant, he was very apprehensive. He was actually kind of against it. He said, I don't know if I could handle watching you go through this again. And it wasn't, maybe in some ways it was hard for him for his own loss because it was our child. We both lost a baby. But for him, it was harder to see me brokenhearted and not be able to take that pain away. And he didn't know that he could see me brokenhearted like that again, ever. So, my faith was big in those moments. I said, honey, if God carried us through this once, God will carry us through it however many times it takes, but I still want a baby. Trying for another baby doesn't change the fact that we lost this one, but it also doesn't change the fact that I still desperately want another child in my arms. And so it took a little time and a lot of prayer, and so he said, okay, let's try again. And then I struggled with infertility, and that was his own difficulty because I just wanted to be pregnant, and he couldn't get me pregnant, and what's the deal? And sex became a chore and it wasn't fun anymore. And he jokes now that he felt used, but I feel like there's some truth to that. He felt like his goal in life was just to get me pregnant, and he didn't really like that. Like, it took all of the fun out of everything that had been beautiful about the intimate times in our marriage. And so it was just a different struggle. I struggled some, honestly, with resentment. I resented my husband for the days that he didn't feel the exact same way as me. The days that I was sad and he wasn't crying too. I'm like, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you sad? Why aren't you brokenhearted? I feel like I'm the only one that's sad. In the days that my faith was bold and I'm like, God is powerful and God is mighty and God's going to answer our prayers, and heaven forbid we lose another baby, he's going to carry us through that too. And when he wasn't on the same page as me, I'm like, why are you fearful? Why aren't you more strong? And then the days that I was fearful, I'm like, why aren't you fearful? It makes me feel crazy that I'm afraid and you're not afraid. And in hindsight, I realized how unfair that was to my husband. With every breath, I had a different feeling, a different emotion. joy and hope and encouragement and complete defeat and brokenness and sorrow and frustration with God. I felt like he wasn't answering my prayers, or that he didn't care, or that his plan was different than mine. And there's times I resented God for that. Like, God, how can you not want this for me? How can you not want us to have another baby? Why are you giving us this struggle with infertility? Am I not loving you enough? Am I not serving you enough? Am I not a good enough mom to these other kids? So my emotions were all over the place. Yet somehow I expected my husband to be on the same page as me at the same time as me. And when he wasn't, I didn't understand. I didn't give him the grace to feel anything or nothing, just the same as I was feeling anything or nothing. Like, looking back, that was really unfair to him. It wasn't until I was able to kind of work through it a little bit, I confessed to him that I was resentful a little bit, and the fact that he was shielded from the things that were difficult for me. It's not fair for me to be upset with him that he wasn't in the bathroom while I'm delivering alone, because I wanted to be alone. So why would I be upset with him about that? I don't invite him into the bathroom any other time with me, so it makes sense why I wouldn't have invited him in then too. Anyway, all of that to say, I was all over the place, and my husband kind of had to put on this strong, he had to be the strong one because I wasn't. But there was times where I just wanted to see him break down and be the one to comfort him, because that made me feel like I didn't lose a baby, we lost a baby. So we got through a pregnancy. I had crazy amounts of fear for lots of different reasons. And it wasn't until we were talking with some good friends of ours and kind of, I would say counseling, but we're not professional counselors. So I use that term as like a friend to friend, sharing hearts. So when we were counseling them through their loss and comforting them through the fears of their pregnancy after loss, I had a much greater idea of what it was like for my husband, because we were kind of on the other side of it. We were raising our rainbow baby. She's almost 3. She'll be 3 this month. And I can't remember how old she was, but maybe just a couple months old. During the time that we were trying for her and the time that I was newly pregnant, I said, I always said that this would be our last baby, but after knowing how much it hurt to lose a baby, I said, I'm just going to trust God with whatever he wants. If he gives us 50 babies, then we'll have 50 babies, and if he gives us just these 4, that's what we'll have. And then when we delivered a healthy baby, he said, I never want to be scared like that ever again. And I didn't realize how hard it was for me to be pregnant. He was terrified every time I was terrified, but he couldn't say that. He couldn't say, I'm freaking out too, because what a wreck we would be if we were both always just freaking out. So for all of that to say, being a parent after a loss is hard for any reason. It's hard for our spouses or the father of our children because they can't fix it. It's frustrating when they just want us to they want to give us another baby to take away that hurt, and yet they're terrified, like, what if this happens again and I can't fix it? What if I can't get you pregnant? What if all you want from me is to be pregnant, and then that's it? That's the root of our relationship, is on whether or not we have more children. And so I guess my advice to you is that give those dads the room to feel how they do. I don't know if the men in your life are giving you the ability to be kind of all over the place. When you're up, they're cheering you on, and when you're down, they're giving you love and just kind of gently doing the best they can to walk through it with you. But I hope that they're gracious too, and if they are, try and reciprocate that. When dads are quiet and reserved and reluctant to help pick out baby names, like, maybe it's just hard for them because they don't feel like they can let their hearts get attached again and go through this brokenness. It's not that they don't love your babies. It's not that they're not excited. It's that it's scary. And those of you that have had multiple losses probably understand it even more so than I do, where you're apprehensive to buy anything, because what happens when you buy stuff for a baby you don't get to bring home, and then you look at it and it's a reminder all the time of the baby that you carry in your heart. I don't know, just somehow you have to find a way to be patient and gracious with them and allow them to feel their own experience of loss. And honestly, this part might make me cry a little bit. They grieve the loss of your children, but they also grieve the loss of the woman you were before you lost your children. Because every single one of us knows that who we were before our loss is not who we are today. And so it's not that they love us differently, but I'm sure that there's times where they miss that time in our lives where we were carefree, those times where intimacy didn't remind us of no longer being pregnant, those times where intimacy wasn't focused on whether or not we were conceiving and what part of our cycle we were in. They missed the way that we laughed and we smiled, and that dates didn't haunt us, or that we didn't have difficulty going certain places because the last time we were there we were pregnant. And so guys do grieve, but they grieve differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, that's my advice for today. I probably will make another video with my husband. I want to sit down and talk to him and see. I'm one that uses a lot of words, and he's kind of reserved in some of those ways, but I'm going to do my best to kind of pick at him a little bit and see if I can get him to open up and share what those thoughts were, in order to help maybe comfort some of your husbands or the father of your children in their own loss and their own time of parenting after loss, because parenting after loss is scary too. Just to help maybe encourage some helpful conversations in your own lives that kind of just let you share openly where your hearts are with each other and find a place where you're okay with it. You know, there's days where maybe your husband blames God for these losses and he doesn't understand how anything good can come of it, and it's hard for you because you think, well, God is great and he's loving me through this and my prayer life has changed and I've become a different woman in God, but in the same time he hasn't gotten to that place yet. God's still working on his heart, and it's just okay to not be on the same page all the time. All right, guys, well, I will be back with you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. If you have questions of specific things you'd like me to ask my husband about, you know, maybe what it's like for him or anything that was helpful or hurtful or anything like that, please feel free to message me, and I'll see if I can pick his brain a little bit just to give the men in our lives the opportunity to connect a little bit without being in a vulnerable place like somebody's home or anything like that. Just watching a video might be a little bit easier. And also, I want you to know I got to my destination safely. Thanks.